Okay, it is February the 12th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. We're here for the Common Council meeting on the second floor of City Hall. Agenda's been posted, media's been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Here.
Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here. We do have quorum. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to number 4, which is public comment. I have a Mary. Oh, if you push the button, it should turn red. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mary Sawinski, and I am a candidate for Oneida County Circuit Court Judge on the April 2nd ballot. I'm currently an assistant district attorney in Oneida County, and I've been an assistant district attorney here for almost 8 years. I would like to share just briefly with you not only why I want to be judge, but why I'm the best candidate for the position. I'm a 5th generation Oneida County resident. I was born and raised on a farm in Sugar Camp, and I learned, obviously, their values that are the values of this community: a strong work ethic, a personal responsibility and accountability, and also concern for my neighbors and my community. I've now been a lawyer for 25 years. Over 20 of those have been as a prosecutor. I've prosecuted just about every kind of case there is to prosecute: juvenile delinquency, juvenile in need of protection and services, criminal cases, and as I said, I've been an assistant district attorney here for nearly 8 years. In addition, I've had leadership positions within the local the local bar association, and served as chair of the children-in-law section of the state bar, and would be a strong voice for common sense and logic and reason in the operation of local court procedures. Over my 25 years of experience as a lawyer, I am now the only candidate in the race that has any experience as a criminal prosecutor, and I am looking forward to applying the skills that I've learned in the circuit court system that this community deserves for the 21st century. I want to thank you again and would invite you to join me on SawinskiForJudge.com, and I would be happy to meet with anyone who wants to know more about my experience. Thank you again.
Thank you. Was there anyone else for public comment? Okay. Not seeing. Move on to mayor's comments. If you have not heard, former Alderman Thomas Kelly has passed away last week. So if you guys would join me in a moment of silence at this time to remember his life as well as his time on city government. So. Thank you. Moving on to number 6, public hearings, none apply for this meeting. Number 7, presentations, none apply. Proclamations, number 8, none apply. Moving on to number 9, ordinances. 9A, second reading and adoption of proposed ordinance 2024-1. Refer to our city administrator.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Hannes. Brian and I met with Alderperson Anderson and made just some light changes, substantive or non-substantive changes, basically word choices and whatnot. And any place where it was repetitive, we took and moved that. Brian, I don't know if you have anything you want. You're good on it. So this is obviously the second reading for you folks.
Mr. Anderson.
I move adoption of ordinance 2024-1, an ordinance amending sections 2.04 and 5.01 of the Rhinelander Code of Ordinances.
Hold second.
Okay, motion second. Looks like there's some discussion. Mr. Barnett?
Was this the one that we discussed earlier?
At the last meeting, yes.
No, I mean today on the phone about the historical thing.
Yeah, the historical is in there, but we're getting it updated through Muni Code right now. Austin's been working on getting it updated.
Okay.
They've had a change in employees there, so had a little bit of confusion, but it will be codified here relatively
Okay,
quickly.
so it doesn't matter that we're,
No,
passing
no,
this.
that's already been changed.
oh, okay, all right.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, as mentioned, my concerns last time have been resolved essentially. I still have one concern that there are 3 different types of inspectors that are listed. A building inspector, electrical inspector, and plumbing inspector, and I believe those 3 are more or less required by state law. And they all say they're appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. I don't recall that we have ever done that for any of them. And I guess I'd just like to ask for an agenda item at the next meeting to take care of making sure we have appointments and confirmations on the record.
Okay. I don't know, Steve Sorensen, if there's anything on that topic you'd like to speak about?
I mean, you can obviously acknowledge the persons that are there, and the council can basically acquiesce in those people being there. At this point, I think you'd have the acquiescence by the city and them taking that position without going through that process would create a legal liability on the part of the city if we tried to dismiss them from that position at this point. So, I mean, certainly I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're suggesting we do this so that they can be removed from office by voting no, I don't think that's going to be appropriate. The mayor has appointed them, the city has appointed them. They've been working now for several months. No one's raised that issue. I don't know that you can certainly go ahead and say, you know, we approve this to be done. But at this point, your acquiescence as a council has basically served as a confirmation of their appointment. That's just the reality of the law. You can't ignore a problem, then, I mean, you as a lawyer would know this is a laches argument is very, very strong.
Mr. Anderson?
I guess I'm concerned with the possibility that somewhere down the line, someone who's unhappy with an inspection should say, this person didn't have a right to do that because he wasn't properly appointed. And it seems like if our ordinance says we're supposed to appoint them and confirm them, we ought to do that.
Yeah, but your ordinance says you should go 55 miles an hour too, and people drive 60 all the time. That doesn't make, you know, people don't follow the letter of the law every day. We live in a society where we have the law and they have rules and regulations, but by acquiescence and behavior, we accept different aspects. I don't think this is one of those things that says that the person cannot serve in that capacity because he wasn't brought to this council for approval. I can say shame on the mayor for not doing it. I can say all those kind of things, but the reality is they're in the position, they're doing the job, they've been doing the job, they've been paid. You're all aware of the fact that they've been there, they've been doing the job. And now only because we're amending a motion did you bring that up. I think that what I'm trying to say is it would be inappropriate at this time. Now, if there's somebody new coming in and you want to do that, that's fine. But you may want to even look at the ordinance and the structure, because as I told you when I responded, we've got ordinances that we haven't been following I could find several instances of that if I went through and dug through every ordinance. And what the city has not done, they've only done it in the area of zoning since I've been around, but you really do need to go back into all of your ordinances and find out which ones are not being lived up to and which ones you're not following through on, because there's other ordinances that should be done. At this case, I mean, if you want to have it, I just want it understood, because if I was one of those inspectors, we're not going to be taking his job away or her job away.
Steve, I got a question for you. Is it like a state statute of the process, or is it just local city code?
It's a city, it's an ordinance, but it's a law. I mean, you drafted it, you approved it. I mean, you violated it. Okay, let's move on. I mean, that's,
Because
it doesn't make the person not an effective member of the city staff. That's what I'm trying to say.
But I actually, and I don't weigh in too much, I actually agree with Mr. Anderson. I don't think those positions should be hired based on elected officials. They should be hired based on our HR department and the direct supervisors. So I would prefer that the ordinance gets updated for that, because I think any elected official, that there's too many political pressures based on that. So I think that should be up to just no different than any other position in the city government. So, and I don't know if Chief would like to speak.
Yeah, these positions currently aren't even filled. Falls under the residential inspector, the UDC inspector, so these positions, it would be the UDC inspector. I shouldn't say they're not filled. It's not filled by a city employee. It's filled by Clem, by RC inspections. We did that through a contract that council approved back in 2020, 2021 sometime. So you guys actually did appoint it and approved it through a contract that Clem is actually doing all these inspections now. When we bring this residential inspector in, and our own UDC inspector, which is an open position right now that has the code enforcement as well, once we bring that person in, we get that person to the UDC construction, uniform dwelling code, I'm sorry. Construction, there'll be HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. Those will be that one position, will be that one person. So we actually have interviews for that position tomorrow afternoon, so that'll be brought before you before any kind of approval with personnel. But that's a personnel issue. As far as commercial goes, it all has to be delegated by the state, to the state. So we only provide the construction, commercial construction, and HVAC. And that's Ryan Berghammer, who you guys approved to move over into that position back when he moved out of fire. Otherwise, we do not have anybody that does it for the city. That is delegated to the state as a plumber. The plumbers is. Electrical is delegated. That was approved by council through Clem as well. And we did that through that bare wire electric. That gentleman, if you guys remember when we had all that. So you have gone through the whole process pretty much the way it needed to be gone through to make sure that we are legitimately appointing these positions or entities, as we say through our ordinance. Kind of muddy, but clear, but not.
You're probably describing the reality, and I certainly am not aware that any individual is being paid right now as a plumbing inspector, electrical inspector. Not so sure about the building inspector part. That seems a little different, but it's a matter of trying to conform with what our ordinance says. That's my concern.
Yep.
And we took care of part of that by saying it doesn't have to be an individual. It could be some other entity.
Correct.
To deal with the reality of what we've been doing.
Yes, sir. And that's, when we put in the entity, that's the contracts that we've already approved through. All contracts are approved through council before we utilize them.
So we don't have any individual inspector at this point?
The only individual inspector that we have right now is Ryan Berghammer, who is our commercial building and HVAC inspector. Other than that, we have the the gentleman that owns Bare Wire Electric that falls under Clem that we approved for electrician. inspector that's delegated. We go through the state to delegate. That contract came through you. And then as far as plumbing, the state inspector does plumbing. So we don't do that. That's the state.
Commercial?
That's commercial, for commercial, yep. And then UDC, which is the Uniform Dwelling Code, that's all residential inspections. We don't, that's the position that we're looking to hire right now, where that'll be the code enforcement position and the residential inspector position. And that person, whoever it is, will be required to get all those UDC credentials.
Mr. Holt?
I would like to call a question. Having a future agenda item is perfectly fine, but we have a place on the agenda to talk about future agenda items.
True. Okay, with that, Austin, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 10A, unfinished business, proposed resolution 2024-10 regarding Pelham Lift Station. I will refer to Mark Barden from Town and Country. And I will have to say, you picked a good meeting last time to miss.
Yeah, I saw that. So I saw the meeting last, or the last council meeting, and I know there's some questions raised at that meeting. I provided Patrick an email that summarized the answers to the questions that were raised. If there's any additional questions by council, I'd be happy to address them. But as Max stated at the last meeting, we do recommend award to August Winter for the $192,700.
Mr. Holt?
I will make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-10 approving the awarding of the contract for the 2023 Pelham Street Lift Station upgrade to August Winter and Sons for a total cost of $192,700.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11A, which is new business. Accepting of common council meeting minutes from January 22nd and January 29th of 2024.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to accept the Common Council meeting minutes from the regular meeting of January 22nd, 2024, and the special meeting of January 29th, 2024.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, abstain, minutes are approved. 11B, discuss and/or action approving the bills and claims for $3.2 million.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve the bills and claims in the amount of $3,229,806.12.
Hold second.
Okay, any discussion on said motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11C, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-12 regarding a traffic study on Timber Drive. I will refer to our chief of police for this one.
This is just a continuation of the next step in addressing the speed concern on Timber Drive, which is the purchase of a traffic engineering study. That is, will be financed through, we had $25,000 set aside to buy the solar speed signs that we'll be putting up in the spring. And that quote and the poles that are required to put those signs up, the 6 of them, will be just under 20, so we have about 5,000 there, which would be where we would take this 3,800 from to afford that study.
Mr. Barnett?
Are there cameras involved with this study?
I'd have to talk to the traffic engineer. I don't know how they do all that.
The only reason I ask is because there was a thing online about people were questioning some cameras up on some road, and someone suggested they were doing a speed study, and there was quite a debate on whether cameras were used during speed studies or not, and I found a link that says they are, so I was just wondering if,
Well, that's probably one of many methods that they use to do data collection.
okay, thanks.
Mr. Holt?
I will motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-12, approving the proposal for, from Traffic Analysis and Design Incorporated for a speed study on Timber Drive for $3,846.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11D, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-13 regarding preventive maintenance agreement for a water solution. Refer to Kurt Johnson, wastewater foreman.
This agreement with Xylem is for all our flight pumps and our lift stations, our 20 lift stations, our main lift and our treatment plant for pumps and mixers. It's a yearly thing that was always done. This is the first time it's actually come in the council. If you read the email that's in the packet, which I don't have on me, with the agreement, I'm recommending that we do it for 3 years out instead of doing it every year. The reason why is because the cost keeps going up. We can lock in at this price. They're already giving us a discount on it. This agreement, also what they do, just so you guys, if you guys didn't read it, they do yearly oil changes, coolant changes. They identify issues with control panels, check all the electrical. They're checking seals, impellers, any wear items we have. And if anything needs to be fixed or replaced or sent down to them, we also get, with this agreement, we get a 15% discount on any parts.
Mr. Holt or Daniel?
I'll make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-13, approving a 3-year preventative maintenance agreement with Xylem Water Solutions USA for the annual cost of $13,750.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson, Leanne Felton, Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11E, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-14, approving a partnership agreement with Domino's Pizza. I'm going to refer to our city administrator on this unique funding opportunity.
Dealing with pizza. I'm a lucky guy. So Domino's Pizza LLC had a promotion end of last year that was called Plowing for Pizza, and basically it was where local community members nominated a community to receive funding potentially for plowing. We don't have any snow, but for plowing it can be for equipment as well as overtime or anything like that. So according to what the folks from Domino's told me, is we had nearly 100 people nominate the city of Rhinelander, and we won one of them. So $25,000, and we'll do with it what we can. They do want pictures of our guys removing snow, so I'm not exactly sure how we're going to tackle that, but we'll figure it out somehow. So, but it's a great opportunity. Appreciate everybody that nominated the city of Rhinelander, and appreciate Domino's. $25,000, can't sneeze at that.
Daniel, I'll make a motion because I'm never one to turn down money. Approving resolution 2024-14, approving a partnership agreement with Domino's Pizza LLC for funding from the Plowing for Pizza Program Award.
Hold second.
Any discussion on said motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11F, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-15, approving a TID grant of $500,000 to Hodag Hospitality. This is part of a development agreement for the Holiday Inn Hotel. Since, if I'm wrong, Brian, just let me know that they're getting close to their final occupancy. Thus, per the terms of the agreement, we owe them $500,000. So, yeah.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve the TID grant of $500,000 to Hodeg Hospitality Group LLC per the approved developers agreement in TID number 12.
Holt second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11G, discuss and/or action, proposed resolution 2024-16 regarding a design consultant for a new proposed municipal complex. Referred to our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as you may remember, boy, it must have been about 4 to 6 months ago, Chief Tenoncourt had talked to everybody about the need for a new fire station. He's had failures down there from the roof and the flooring. Lots of things are just going wrong. So when staff had spoken about this, we had talked about this might be an opportunity to look into having a new municipal complex. Though this building is great, it's historic, it is kind of old, and it's kind of not meeting our needs anymore. So what we did is we had initially talked with Brian Knutson from Design Tech. He's worked with employees to figure out what our needs are, and he is looking to continue that work, acting pretty much as a go-between and design consultant. And he's looking for $1,500 for this service. It's a service that we need. So,
What's your funding source?
well, that's going to be the next one actually, is the Veerbecker, but that's a heavy job in and of itself. So for this, it's basically just design and working through and asking the right people the right questions.
No, the funding source for the 1,500.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not the building.
I thought you were talking
Building's
about the
bigger
entire
than-
building. This ARPA funds.
Mr. Holt?
Motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-16, approving the proposal for Design Tech for design consultant services related to a proposed municipal complex for the sum of $1,500.
Felton second.
Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Anderson?
That sounds like a pretty small number for a large project. What do we expect from this part of it?
Well, he's done a lot of work already. We've already worked over the design and the basic concepts of that. That's a big part of it, and he's been working for nothing. And we expect him to continue with the design and to also act with like I said, as a go-between between us and Veerbecker and moving through the process. He's done this before.
Not seeing any other discussion. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to 11H, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-17 regarding looking for funding for a municipal complex. Refer to our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second part of it. So this is obviously going to be a heavy project here. It's going to require lots of funding, and usually the typical area for funding is community development block grant through USDA rural development. These are high-end grants that take a lot of work. I've written one in my life, and it was for a lot less than this probably will be. And it was a full-time job for about 3 months. So having Veerbecker on, somebody that knows the process, has people that can work through the process and help us achieve our goals, that's going to be terribly important.
Mr. Holt?
I'll make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-17, approving the proposal from Veerbecker for a public funding investigation and recommendation for a proposed municipal complex.
Daniel second.
Any discussion on the said motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11I, discuss and/or action of proposed resolution 24-18 This is a contract between Inspection Department of the City of Rhinelander and Town of Pelican. This would be to staple the additional handout you have, because I think there's some stuff that's slightly different than what's in your packet. Brian, my understanding is every 2 years with all the townships, we have an agreement to do inspections for them. This one's coming due, and we're seeking your guys' approval to then bring to them for approval.
Yeah, that's correct. We spent some time with Pelican Town Board and negotiated this contract with them to bring to you with the prices and everything. So the one piece that you have in your handout, the only change that we made in there was that $100 on the second page says valid for 2 years in parentheses there. We just put in permit extension fee. We had to add that, so it kind of makes it clear of what that fee actually is there. So that's the only addition.
Ms. Daniel?
Do we have inspectors?
So this is where RC Inspections right now is contracted from us to do this. They're our delegate to do this work, and then we do the permitting for it.
Gotcha.
Mr. Barnett?
How does the, I don't know how to put this. So if we're, basically you're subcontracting, right?
Correct.
So how much is the service of that compared to what we're taking in for the services?
We take about approximately $100 per inspection in. So it depends on what the inspection is, how much it entails. You can kind of see how it breaks down through this. And then we're looking to negotiate this with each township. These were all negotiated by Robbie when he was in there. We've had a lot of feedback on that and on our prices and our numbers, and we're at risk of losing these contracts.
So are we saying the prices aren't fair, or?
We were hearing that the prices weren't fair going the other opposite way, so we renegotiated to make them more palatable with the townships rather than lose the townships altogether. So we'll be doing that with the other townships.
Mr. Anderson?
To these, so does that mean that the other townships will be running a lower price when they come up for renewal?
We'll negotiate with the other townships individually, just as we did with Pelican. Each one will be different, and we'll bring them all to you the same way. So once you approve this contract, then we'll send it to Pelican for them to approve it. We've already worked with them to do their ordinances, and we sent the ordinances that they had to approve to be able to do this and use this as their delegate. Sorry.
Excuse me. I compared these with what we have on our fee schedule for inspections in the city, and some things matched up and some things didn't. And some things that, that we have in our list are not included in here, at least not in an obvious way.
So the townships also have the ability to request certain inspections from us and not take other inspections. So some of these are what the townships are requesting for us to do for them.
I see.
So there will be a difference in some of these. It depends on what the townships
So
want.
we'll have about 5 more of these coming up over the next year, I suppose?
Yes. Yep. Through this next few months, I believe we should be pretty close to being done with them all.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve a proposed resolution 2024-18, approving the contract for inspection services between the City of Rhinelander and the Town of Pelican.
Hold a second.
Yep. Brian, I got one more question for you. Do you see this change any way affecting our current 2024 budget for inspections positively or negatively?
I think we'll be pretty close still. We were able to add some charges that we haven't had in the past, even though we brought down the threshold of the square footage for the homes that they're building out there to the 5,000 square foot rather than the 1,600 square foot home. But we have finished garages in here and some other things where our fees kind of came up to offset those costs. So our hope is that with volume, and it's really hard to tell with inspections of how many homes are going to be built and how many garages are going to be built, especially in this economy right now. So it's kind of a shot in the dark, if you will. So we did the best we could to look out there and try to figure out where they've been in the past 5 years and where we see them going. And we just kind of went with a happy medium there to try to figure out whether it's at least sustainable for us, for our department.
True. Any other discussion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11J, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-19 regarding some budget amendments. I refer to our city treasurer, Wendy.
So the budget amendment is, at the end of the year, I post as many items that wrap up in January for the December and prior year. And then I can review the financials to see where we were close with the budget, where we need to do a budget amendment. So that is why there is several items on this one. And I don't know if you want to just if you have any questions on any of them, I can just briefly go through them. The first one, we received more income through the room tax. So we're required to do a budget amendment because 70% of that gets paid out to the Tourism Commission through the Chamber of Commerce. In order to honor our budget, we had to increase the expenditure. The next one is for the Pioneer Park Historical Complex. They needed a roof replacement, and we were budgeting that for 2024, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, they had to complete that project in 23. So this is just budgeting to use fund balance to cover that project, but the transfer into the museum fund is still going to be the same for 24, so that'll replenish the fund balance. And then the third one is just budgeting the K-9 expenditures and revenues. This was an unknown when we created the 23 budget because they were doing fundraising and they purchased a K-9 vehicle, so we didn't have that information at that time. Then for number 4, we closed out our TIF district number 5, but we didn't budget the closeout of it. And that's just to pay out the other taxing jurisdictions and then our portion. And then number 6 is to budget the Oneida Ave project, which there's pieces of that. So we get the funding for the Oneida Ave project through the USDA, and then we had the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. The USDA funding flows into the wastewater fund. The Safe Drinking Water Loan Program flows into the water fund. The expenditures for the project are still posted to, like the expenditures for the streets are posted to Fund 432 as the street portion of it. And then at the end of the year, then I transfer or record a journal entry to align the funding that is in the water and the wastewater that covers these street expenditures. I move that over to match up with the expenditures. And this happens with every large project. But at the time that we're doing the budget, the numbers are very, very unknown. And then the 21 borrowing was spent down in its totality, but in order to do that, to make it honor the budget, I had to increase the expenditures for the public safety vehicles. And then in TID 8, we had the Art Start had a WEDC grant that flowed through the city to Art Start, and that was in TIF district number 8. So this is just budgeting the flow through of us receiving the money and then paying it out to Art Start. And number 9 is just the transfer of the funding in water to the municipality, and the same in number 10, wastewater to the municipality. And then in number 11, that one is directly related to the inspections. So we did have an increased amount of revenue in our building permits this year than what we had originally anticipated, and that directly correlated to our increased expenditure to RC inspections, which that exceeded what our budgeted amount was, so I just wanted to increase the budget to allow for that. And then in the hazmat minor equipment expenditures, we're just increasing that a little bit to honor what the actual was. And then number 13 is one that I was really hoping that you could just review and provide your approval for it. As we looked at, I reviewed all this information with Patrick, and as we looked at where our revenues came in as to what we were expecting in revenues, we actually received more in revenue than what we were expecting. And then looking in the totality of the general fund of where the expenditures actuals came in compared to what we budgeted, we did very well. So there is room for us to make a transfer from the general fund into our special projects fund to start building a reserve for the property assessment revaluation. We would like to set aside $100,000 into the special projects fund for that. And then also for the shared ride program, there's a state audit that is usually done every year, and the last time they had completed an audit all the way through was back in 2013. So for the past several years, I've been waiting for documentation and process to finalize numbers. So in the meantime, 2014 through our current year has not been audited, but we do have the numbers. It just hasn't gone through the official process of being audited. But in the meantime, there's a negative cash balance in there of close to $80,000. In the past at least 2 years, the auditors have started asking, what is our plan to deplete that negative cash balance? So I was hoping, with your permission, we could transfer $70,000 to start chipping away at that negative cash balance amount. And that still will leave the general fund in a very positive impact to the fund balance, of increasing the fund balance to our normal range of $300,000.
And the general fund balance is key for interest rate on our loans, correct? That's a big factor on that.
Correct.
So overall, this is a very good for the city from staying within our means without increasing the burden on the taxpayers, as well as doing these projects.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-19, approving budget amendments as submitted by the city treasurer, finance director.
Hold second.
By Holt, Mr. Anderson.
On the shared ride thing, I guess it sounds like we're losing money on it every year over a period of 9 years or whatever. And is that the intent, that it continues that way, or is there something we need to adjust on that?
So the intent of the shared ride program is to operate at a zero local share cost, so that it's self-funded, and using the federal and state grants, it's sufficient without being subsidized by the city's tax levy. So we submit an application with estimates of a budget, and then at the end of the year, then we get the actual information, and they have limited factors on how much grant money that we will receive. We get it throughout the year, but the final payment, then they look at what do we have that's coming to us and what are the limiting factors, so that they don't overpay us or underpay us. So they've improved their program since 2014. And with the COVID relief money for 2020, 21, 22, and 23, there has not been a local share because there is funding to cover the local share. For 24, I'm not sure if you remember from the budget time, but we are budgeting a $25,000 transfer into the shared ride program as the local share. But as to prior to 2020, I'd have to pull up my files to show you the actuals of how they didn't match up to, the actuals were not close to what budgeted and federal and state funding ended up being.
And to piggyback off that, didn't we raise rates within the last year for that too to help compensate?
Yes.
So,
yes, we did.
so Mr. Jopek?
That was what I was going to bring up. Does that, I mean, obviously everything's murky right now, but does that look like that might alleviate some of that deficit moving forward to where we don't end up in that hole again, or we just don't really know at this point?
I'm not really sure, because it also goes on the amount of ridership compared to the rates.
Yeah, I would argue if we're balanced and or making a profit per ride, our ridership probably will go up based on more of a demand, based on the cab company taking on a bigger volume of territory. So as long as we're profitable per ride on average, I would think we should be in the net positive. But there's so many factors, from fuel prices to terms of that contract to what could change. It's kind of like if you know the lottery tickets for tomorrow, let me know. We could do something there. But yeah, Mr. Anderson.
I've expressed concern in the past about putting money aside towards the tax assessment reevaluation. So I'm happy to see something in here about that.
Cool. Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie McLowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11K.
Yeah, there's nothing new to report. We still have a possibility of a different purchaser, but we're moving ahead with the court case, which will probably be done in the middle of March.
Any questions for Steve on said topic? Okay. Moving on to 11L, discuss and or approve questionnaire for the applicant for city alderman open seat. Refer to our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Hannes. Just before I speak, want to just make sure everybody realizes that what Wendy had just spoken about, that is a lot of work. She did a really good job, so thank you, Wendy, for that. So at the last meeting, last regular meeting, the council had instructed me to get together some questions, sent out some questions, got some feedback back, and all the feedback was all different from everybody I got. There was really no commonalities there, except the questions seemed to be good. So I grabbed the 10 questions that I thought made the most sense to me. I apologize if I didn't take one of yours. And that's what I put before you tonight in the packet there.
Mr. Barnett?
I think the questions are sufficient for what we're looking for. So I will, do we need to make a motion on this, or?
I don't think so.
I don't think we do, right?
No,
Yeah, well, my opinion, I think the questions are just fine.
Mr. Holt?
I agree. I think the questions capture the breadth of what we need, and probably then some.
Okay. So with that, if you just want to explain the next processes, where are we going from here? When do you, and that might be more of an Austin question too, of when do you plan on doing the media blitz, who are you going to contact, and then the deadline for turning them in for council?
Well, I think a lot of that kind of stems from what council's decision is. Of course, doing a major advertising blitz, making sure all the media get this. It's on the city website. It's published at the library, published at all the city buildings and whatnot, so folks are able to pick up this questionnaire or able to access it online. But in terms of timeline and everything like that, I would default to what's council looking for.
And that's honestly what we need is a give us a date that you'd like to have these in by. So, and I would offer that you might want to give just a little bit of buffer time, a day or two, for us to be able to compile them, get them in the packet, anything else like that.
Austin, I'm sorry.
No.
All right. What does your schedule look like for the elections? Because we're coming up on that really quick, and
April would be my first election, so you're looking, I think it was April 2nd would be the election, so a few weeks before that I'll get kind of busy.
so that doesn't really leave a lot of time before he gets super busy.
But we can definitely make it work if we're looking. I know the original discussion was, I think it was February 29th or March 1st is I think what we discussed at previous meetings.
Mr. Holt?
My memory was it was March 1st, so Friday, March 1st, and I think that leaves a good amount of time in terms of getting a final product for us to review. I think a few days over that weekend leading up to March 11th probably is adequate, so March 1st for a deadline to get that in is probably great.
Okay, and then I'm also assuming, but looking for guidance, would you like those candidates to be at the first meeting in March for a Q&A too?
We are going to be making the decision that day, correct?
Hopefully.
Yeah. I'm not sure a Q&A during that meeting past just the submission of written questions. I think that has the potential to sort of get out of hand, depending on how many people we have. So I would say we would want to keep, my impression would be, and others can chime in, I'm not, the only person with an opinion here, but my view would be that we would want to keep that as tight as possible in terms of the nomination process that day.
Mr. Barnett?
I agree with Alderperson Holt. I think having a Q&A would kind of just be a free-for-all kind of deal. I mean, I think we're going to get the answers we need from the questionnaire, which is why we're putting it out in the first place. So I don't think there should be any more questions after the questions that were in the questionnaire that we'd need to ask.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, I think we can get a lot of information from the questionnaires, but there's nothing like actually seeing the person in person and seeing how they answer at least a few questions. I think almost any interview process, before you actually choose someone, you want to see them in person or on Zoom or whatever these days, but have some face-to-face, and somehow that seems useful to me, but I'm not insisting on it, but I don't think just doing it on paper is necessarily the best way to do it.
Mr. Jopek?
I guess I don't really have anything to contribute on to whether or not we should or shouldn't. If we were to have any face-to-face time, my recommendation would be we make sure we have a structure to how we're going to do it, like an interview per se, where we're not all just like rapid-fire questioning. I do think that this questionnaire is pretty thorough. At the same time, I'm a teacher, and so like face-to-face interactions with students, I tend to get a better feel for how they're doing on a certain learning target, and so I do kind of sense that same face-to-face impression. So it's either or, just please structure it in a way that it does not end up being a goat rodeo.
Ms. Daniel?
Might I make a suggestion that in addition to the questionnaires, we ask the applicants to come in and make a 3-minute statement prior to voting. That'll let us see them, hear them, see their demeanor, but also, and give us a little more information. But I agree with Mr. Jopek that if we are just rapid fire questions at some and not at others and yada yada, it's gonna get wild. So we better have snacks. So that's my recommendation, is just to let them have some time.
Mr. Holt?
Sorry. Yeah, and Carrie, you can correct me if I don't remember this correct, but I believe that the last time that those of you who came that day gave about a 5-minute statement, 5-minute or less statement, just introducing who you were face to face. So I agree with Ms. Daniel that a 5-minute, not a Q&A, but just a 5-minute or less statement from each candidate. That gives us a very acute, controlled time, and then we move on from there.
Mr. Barnett?
This may be just me, and it probably is, but I don't know, I feel a little uncomfortable using the word interviewing for the position. It's an elected position, not a job. I mean, I understand where everybody's coming from, but I don't think that we should be asking all these questions of someone to see if they fit with our ideals that we like. Because the whole point of having different people on the board here is so that we can have robust conversations and not have exactly the same views and all that. I mean, maybe it's just me. I just don't know if, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with treating it like you're hiring someone to be on the thing, you know? I don't know. It's probably just me, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up.
Ms. Michalowski?
I think the point of asking questions isn't so much that we're hiring them, but the constituents don't know who these people are either. So it's our way of being able to have them introduce themselves to the city so that, you know, their constituents have a little bit of an idea of who they are, what they stand for, and, you know, how they feel the city should be run. So I don't have a problem with the questions being asked. And then just to answer David's question, he's accurate in the fact that we just had a couple minutes to introduce ourselves, explain why we wanted to be appointed, what we offer to that role. It wasn't very intensive, and it probably didn't even take 5 minutes. I think the 3-minute mark is sufficient for what we did, but I agree that it should be organized, you know, like that, and I think that it's fair beyond the questions to have them have that time to introduce themselves to the city and to their constituents.
Mr. Jopek?
I agree with Mr. Barnett on the concern there. At the same time, and I agree that maybe interviewing is maybe not the appropriate verb, but at the same time, unfortunately, we're in the situation where we are appointing. And so the only alternative to that is to carry out a special election and allow the district to vote, which we've acknowledged it could be pricey and isn't. There's not a winning situation here, really. And so I think that 3 to 5 minutes, allowing them to stand up and be publicly represented and to represent themselves, to show that we are listening. I think a lot of these questions in the questionnaire are geared towards ethics and governance and what it means to be a civil servant, rather than, I think there's one that's like, what do you see is a concern for Rhinelander 10 years down the line? That's about as policy oriented as it is. The rest of it is much more of what do you believe a good civil servant really is? And I think in that regard, that's what we're trying to do, is just find a person that shows or at least leads us to believe that they are an ethical servant of the community for this remainder of this period.
So it sounds like everyone's okay with a 4-minute presentation by each candidate who's interested. So if we're okay with that, Austin, if you could add that with the blitz of media. And Ms. Daniel?
I would just think about it this way, Tom. If they were campaigning, they would have time to tell their constituents all these things that are in this questionnaire. And so we're just standing in for the constituents at this point because we can't have a special election. And so anything that would have been brought up during a campaign is now just put in front of us.
Mr. Holt?
So the next step after the agreement on a short window of time for them to introduce themselves would be to clarify, I think it's very important, I would like to know, to clarify how the actual vote would occur, right? Is there going to be deliberation or discussion? Does that discussion has to happen publicly? But does it just go to the first person who motions to nominate somebody, or is I think that there needs to be a good clarification, and Steve looks like he's going to chime in on that.
Yeah, so if you had 5 people that put themselves out there and said, I want to be, then you'd have 5 names that you would all vote on, and it would be a vote that you would cast publicly. You'd have 5 names, and so all in favor of number 1, or all in favor of number 2, all in favor of, now you can decide if there's 5 that you want to take it down to 3, take it down to 2, that you can decide once you know how many people. If there's only 2, you're only going to vote once. But if there's 3, you may want to vote twice. And you can set that, but I wouldn't set that until the night you're here. Because, again, until you know how many candidates there are, it would be inappropriate. Or if you voted, number 1 got 7 votes, I don't think you need to have another election,
So maybe it'd be appropriate that we allow a discussion time between the body before anyone would make a motion, and then close, and then let you guys make motions.
Yeah, so that means that needs to be on the agenda for March 11th, that we set that vote, because we're going to know how many people, and we're going to have to start with setting the rules or the guidelines for how we're going to.
Yeah, so what would be on the agenda is there'd be an entry, motion with regard to the rules for electing in other words, you don't have to be specific, you just have to say we're going to do that at the meeting.
Mr. Jopek?
I guess just to clarify, so we're gonna resolve rules on the vote, because that, like, the case of 5 people, let's say 5 people do sign up, and there's 8 of us, that means that like a vote of 2 could potentially carry, and that could be who gets appointed.
I think it's a majority of council.
What I'm saying to you is you get to set the rules that night, okay?
Okay.
So if you had 5, I would presume, I don't want to write into your head, but you'd probably say a majority, and if nobody gets a majority, we'll go from 5 down to 4, down to 3, whatever you want to do. But to answer the mayor saying, I think you want to agree that it's a majority vote. I don't think you want to say the highest vote getter out of 7, because you could each get 1, But that's why I'm saying, don't nail yourself down to a little bitty, put it on the agenda saying you'll establish the rules based on what you have in front of you.
So pretty much establish rules, hear the presentation, and then follow said rules reestablished. Ms. Daniel?
One short question. Will we have the answers to the questionnaire prior to that meeting?
It should go out with the packet, I assume, right? So.
Okay.
And that pack would also be open to the public, so.
Okay. That was going to be my question. I think that it would be good to have the answers to questionnaires, if we're going to have it publicly posted, that we have at least a handful of days, as much as possible, for the public to see that and for that district to weigh in on that. I suspect that we're probably going to get some people from that district giving comment to it.
Okay. Well, and I'm going to warn you, don't discuss how you're going to vote or who you're going to vote for, you can listen to people, but you're going to make that decision here that night. You can't make that decision outside of this meeting. For example, you can't chit-chat with each other saying, you know, I think that, you know, Charlie Brown really should get it because Charlie's so attractive. Don't do that. So if somebody calls you up, say thank you for the commentary, but don't comment on how you're going to vote or who you're going to vote, because you don't know that that person's not going to take your comment and take it to another councilman saying, I just talked to Steve, and Steve said he's voting for Charlie Brown. You know, you don't want to be the loser. So I'm just really warning you about, you know, open meeting laws and that.
Mr. Jopek?
The only one other thing was, and then maybe this is just knick-knack, but is there possible to get all of the responses digital so that it's not handwritten? That sounds weird, but just typed up, because sometimes handwriting does get a little crazy, gets a little difficult to read. And so maybe can we, I don't know, can we mandate that it is typed?
Austin, what do you want to do for 4 hours?
Oh, we're not asking him to type
No,
them
no,
up.
no.
You want the
Their
candidates.
submission, their submission to be typed, that
The
way
answer,
it's
Steve, is
legible.
you can require that.
Yes, in
Okay.
order, in order for it to be considered, it has to be provided in digital format.
Actually, I kind of like the idea of Austin typing for 4 hours sooner than
And we should be able to make that a fillable form using Adobe Pro, so I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do that.
Mr. Anderson?
But would it be possible to have those questionnaires completed and out to us, say 5 days before the meeting, something before the packet comes out?
Up to the body, but I suppose the deadline of whenever you want them turned in, within a day, we could turn them around.
If the time is the first, there's, and the meeting's,
If council would like, if we're having the deadline going to be March 1st, which is a Friday, if you want to mandate a specific time that's like noon Friday, March 1st, and then as soon as I receive everything, I can immediately turn around, have it published on the website, sent out to all the council members, and have it all ready to go. So then you'll get it probably about 1 o'clock March 1st, and that gives you 10 days before the meeting then. But you would have to set a specific time then for that deadline.
Everyone's good with noon? Okay. So to summarize, Friday at noon, March 1st, would be the deadline to turn in your typed questionnaire. Austin will get that to all of you before the end of the day. That way you have roughly 10 days to review on your own time. We're going to come to that council meeting, which will be the first one in March. We're going to set our rules of how we're going to do this. We're going to let them have a presentation mode, and then you guys are going to vote. And I will lock you in here until you vote. And then from there, we have a full body again. So roughly, we're all in agreement to the said concept? Okay. Anything else anyone wants to talk about?
Yeah. One other thing you want to do is you also want to establish, if you're going to allow the public, you have your open session, are you going to let the public come in and have, you know, campaigning for one of their 5? Because you do have on your agenda public comment, and there's really nothing that would stop someone going up to the podium and saying, I'd like to support Charlie Brown. So I think you have to also establish a rule with regard to if you're going to allow public comment on the candidates. It may be difficult to say that we will accept no public comment, but you certainly can, you could do that. I haven't researched it yet, but I think you need a rule, something. At least say it now so people can object before the meeting.
I am skeptical of whether or not that's something we can actually do. My understanding of public comment is that people can say anything they want.
All I'm saying is you can really legally say you only get 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Yes,
that you could do.
You
There's
can
no
do a
question
time
about
limit,
that.
Mr. Barnett?
I think, I mean, I agree with Alderperson Holt that it could get muddy and quite lengthy. So I mean, I think for transparency's sake, we need to have public comment for each person. If they have a group of people, you know, we can set the rules to public comment, say no more than 2 minutes long, and if you're going to say the same thing that the first 5 people said, just please say, I agree with so-and-so, and, you know, have a seat.
I believe that 2 minutes is the current time for a public comment. The other question I have is does this person get sworn in and seated that night or the next meeting?
Generally, you do it as soon as you elect them.
Ms. Michalowski?
I just want to be clear that this public comment portion will be during the public comment portion on the agenda, not a separate public comment during this voting time, right? Correct?
That's my understanding.
That's the way I would think it should be.
Yeah,
Okay.
the only reason I brought it up is I can see somebody coming here during public comment, you all looking at each other going like, well, we didn't expect this, so there's 15 people that want to speak for Charlie Brown. So I thought you better get that in your heads right now, because the likelihood is you might have 1 or 2. I don't think you're going to have 15, but maybe you will.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion on this topic. Moving to 12, which is monthly reports.
Holt, I'll make a motion to accept the monthly reports as presented.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on said motion? Not seeing all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, abstain. Motion passes. Number 13, communications, none apply. Number 14, future agenda items. We have the 2. Mr. Anderson, do you want the appointments of those inspections added? If you got that. Anything else for Mr. Holt?
I got I don't know that I would call it a complaint, but a concern from a constituent with regard to clarification on fees for parking permits. And I would like to see an agenda item that clarifies the policy that we have now on that. For example, the purchase of an annual parking permit, the cost of that and such, and also discussion on whether or not that needs to be updated.
And with your permission, I'd also like to add that we put in a document of a map of all public parking parts that the city owns and which ones qualify for the fee and which ones qualify for overnight parking as well.
Excellent, thank you.
So, anything else for future agenda items? Okay, next regular meeting would be February 26th at 6 p.m. It is 7:12 and 33 seconds. Meeting adjourned.